The message arrived at dawn, burning through every security protocol Do-Yeon Kim had installed around his quiet home on Mars. Red letters filled his display screen, pulsing with urgency. The Galactic Council demanded his presence. Not requested, demanded. Do-Yeon sat at his kitchen table, coffee growing cold in his hands. He had retired 2 years ago after the Void Wars ended. He had given the galaxy enough. 5 years of brutal combat. Countless tactical decisions that saved billions but cost millions. The medals they pinned on his chest felt like weights trying to drag him down. He wanted peace. He wanted to be forgotten, but the message kept pulsing. The Council rarely contacted anyone directly. When they did, worlds trembled. He dressed in his old uniform, the dark fabric still fitting perfectly despite the years. His reflection in the mirror showed a man in his 30s who looked older. Gray touched his temples. Lines marked his face. War aged people in ways that time alone never could. The transport ship arrived within an hour. It descended from the rust-colored sky like a silver needle, impossibly smooth and silent. Alien technology always made human engineering look primitive. Do-Yeon grabbed his small travel bag and walked toward it without looking back at his home. Inside the ship, a holographic attendant greeted him. The creature looked vaguely reptilian, with scales that shifted colors as it spoke. Its voice came out smooth and emotionless. Commander Kim, the Council appreciates your swift response. We will arrive at the station in 6 hours. Please make yourself comfortable. Do-Yeon said nothing. He found a seat near the window and watched Mars shrink beneath him. The red planet had been his sanctuary. Now it felt like a memory already fading. The journey through space gave him time to think. The Council never called veterans back without reason. Something had gone wrong. Something big enough that they needed Earth's war hero. He tried to remember what he knew about current galactic politics. After retiring, he had stopped following the news. The constant reports of border skirmishes and trade disputes depressed him. When the ship finally approached the Council station, Do-Yeon pressed his face against the window. The station hung in neutral space like a massive crystal flower. 1,000 points of light glowed across its surface. Ships from dozens of worlds docked at its petals. He had seen images before, but nothing prepared him for the reality of it. The station represented everything the Confederation had built together. A place where war was forbidden, where disputes ended with words instead of weapons. Do-Yeon had fought to protect this ideal. Looking at it now, he wondered if it had been worth the cost. His ship docked smoothly. The door opened to reveal a long corridor made of something that looked like glass but felt warm under his boots. Lights moved beneath the surface, following his footsteps. 2 guards waited for him, both from species he didn't recognize. They wore ceremonial armor that probably cost more than a small spaceship. "This way, Commander," one said. They led him deeper into the station. Other beings passed them in the corridors. Tall ones, short ones, some floating, others crawling. The galaxy contained so much diversity that even after years of military service, Do-Yeon still saw new species regularly. They all stopped to stare at him, some with curiosity, others with something that looked like reverence. He hated it. Being famous meant being watched constantly. Every decision judged. Every action analyzed. He had just wanted to serve his people and go home. The guards brought him to massive doors that stretched 30 feet high. Carved into their surface were symbols from every member species of the Confederation. The doors opened silently, revealing the Grand Chamber. Do-Yeon stopped breathing for a moment. The chamber was enormous, easily the size of a football stadium. But instead of seats, hundreds of floating platforms hovered at different heights. On each platform stood representatives from different worlds. Their eyes, all different colors and shapes, focused on him as he entered. At the center of the room, a single platform waited. Empty. For him. His escort gestured forward. Do-Yeon walked across the bridge that extended from the doorway. His footsteps echoed despite the crowd. When he reached the central platform, it rose smoothly, lifting him until he stood level with the highest representatives. A figure moved forward from the assembly. Chancellor Yuri, the reptilian leader of the Council. His scales were deep purple, marked with age and authority. When he spoke, his voice carried across the entire chamber without amplification. "Commander Do-Yeon Kim of Earth, the Confederation calls upon you once more." Do-Yeon stood straight but said nothing. Let them make their case first. "The Outer Rim territories face extinction," Yuri continued. "The Hive Empress expands without mercy. 40 worlds have fallen silent, Millions of souls consumed. Our combined fleets cannot stop her advance. Every strategy fails. Every defense crumbles. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Doyen noticed fear in many faces. The Hive Empress. He had heard rumors about her during his service, but she had been a distant threat then. Apparently she wasn't distant anymore. We need the mind that won the Void Wars, Yuri said. We need the human who thinks in ways others cannot. Name your price, Commander. Lead our forces. Save the galaxy once more. The chamber fell silent. Hundreds of beings waited for his response. Doyen looked around slowly. He saw desperation in their faces, fear, hope. They were offering him everything he had walked away from. Command, glory, purpose, the weight of billions of lives resting on his decisions. Before he could respond, another platform rose to his level. A woman stood on it wearing the formal robes of Earth's diplomatic corps. Ambassador Hannah Park. Her face remained neutral, but her eyes held a warning. The Council has prepared significant incentives for your cooperation, Commander, she said carefully. Perhaps we should discuss them privately before you respond. Yuri's scales shifted to a darker shade. He clearly didn't appreciate the interruption, but diplomatic protocol held. He gestured agreement. Very well. Commander Kim, you will be shown to your quarters. We will reconvene in 3 hours. The platform lowered. Doyen followed Hannah out through a side entrance. As soon as the doors closed behind them, she grabbed his arm. They're going to offer you things you can't imagine, she said quietly. Be careful what you accept. And be more careful what you refuse, Doyen met her eyes. What's really happening here, Ambassador? Hannah glanced around, making sure they were alone. The Council is terrified. The Hive isn't just winning. She's unstoppable. They'll give you anything to fight her. Anything. Then maybe I should hear what they're offering. That's what worries me, Hannah said. Because I know you, Commander. You don't want what most men want, and that makes you dangerous to predict. She was right. Doyen had never cared about wealth or fame. But he had also never walked away from people who needed help. The galaxy was calling again. And despite everything, despite the exhaustion and the scars, part of him wanted to answer. The question was, what would it cost him this time? The quarters they gave Doyen were excessive. 3 rooms of pure luxury, with windows that showed the stars and furniture that adjusted itself to his body. He ignored all of it and stood at the window watching ships come and go from the station. A chime announced a visitor. Hannah entered without waiting for permission. They're ready, she said. And Doyen, whatever happens in there, remember that you can say no. He turned to face her. Can I? You said they're desperate. Desperate enough to respect your choice. Probably. She didn't sound convinced. Come on. Let's get this over with. They walked through corridors that grew more elaborate with each turn. Gold veins ran through the crystal walls. The ceiling showed images of peaceful worlds. Propaganda reminding everyone what they fought to protect. Doyen had seen too many of those worlds burn to find comfort in the pictures. The chamber they entered was smaller than the Grand Chamber, but somehow more intimidating. It was called the Crystalline Atrium, and every surface reflected light in rainbow patterns. 17 representatives stood in a semicircle, one from each major species in the Confederation. Chancellor Yuri stood at the center. Commander Kim, Yuri began. Thank you for your patience. We understand the magnitude of what we ask. You gave 5 years to the Void Wars. You earned your peace. But the galaxy faces extinction, and we have no one else who can lead us to victory. Doyen crossed his arms. You have thousands of military commanders across dozens of worlds. None with your record, said a floating jellyfish creature to Yuri's left. Its voice came through a translator that made it sound like wind chimes. You won 17 major engagements without losing a single one. You turned defeats into victories. You see patterns others miss. I got lucky, Doyen said flatly. 17 times. This from a crystalline being that refracted light as it moved. We need that luck, Commander. Yuri raised a clawed hand for silence. We know we ask much, so we offer much in return. Wealth first and foremost. He gestured and a holographic display appeared showing numbers so large they barely made sense. Enough to buy planets. Enough to make Earth the richest world in the Confederation. Doyen didn't react. Money had never motivated him. Yuri continued. Territory. We can grant Earth expanded colonization rights. 10 new systems yours to settle and govern. Still nothing. Doyen's expression remained neutral. The Chancellor's scales shifted color, showing frustration. He glanced at the other representatives, then made a decision. Very well. We offer you something more valuable than wealth or territory. We offer you companionship. The lights in the chamber dimmed. New holograms appeared, life-sized and breathtakingly detailed. The first showed a woman from the crystal worlds, her body translucent and glowing with inner light. She moved like art in motion. The crystal people are known for their beauty, Yuri explained. This is Kiana, daughter of their High Council. She has agreed to bond with you. A crystal bonding is permanent, eternal. You would never be alone. The hologram shifted. Now it showed an aquatic being, blue-skinned and graceful, with large eyes that held ancient wisdom, Mira of the deep worlds. Her people live for centuries. She could be your partner for lifetimes. More holograms appeared, each one more stunning than the last. Beings of pure energy, winged creatures from high-gravity worlds whose voices could sing in frequencies humans couldn't hear, plant-based species who could bloom flowers across their skin. The galaxy's most beautiful individuals, all willing to bond with Earth's war hero. Doyen watched them parade past. He felt nothing. These beings were magnificent, certainly, but they were offerings, not choices, rewards for service. He had spent 5 years watching people die. He couldn't be bought with pretty faces. Yuri's voice grew more desperate. We have matched each potential companion to your genetic and psychological profile. Any one of them would be compatible. You could choose several if you wished. The Confederation places no limits on your household. No, Doyun said quietly. The holograms froze. Silence filled the chamber. The representative stared at him in confusion. No, Yuri repeated. Commander, perhaps you don't understand. These are not temporary arrangements. These are beings who wish to bond with you permanently, to share their lives with Earth's greatest hero. The honor is immense. I understand, Doyen said, and I'm not interested. A representative that looked like a cloud of moving insects spoke up. Perhaps the commander prefers his own species? We can arrange humans instead. Earth has many who would volunteer. That's not the issue, Doyen said. Then what? Yuri stepped closer. Name your desire, Commander. What do you want? More wealth? Your own fleet, a title? Governorship of a sector? We can provide anything. Doyen turned away from them and walked to the chamber's window. Outside, he could see the prison sector of the station. A separate structure connected by a single bridge, where they kept the galaxy's worst criminals far from the diplomatic areas. Lieutenant Ji-Wan Choi had accompanied him to the station, though she had been ordered to remain with the ship. Her voice crackled in his hidden earpiece. Commander, what are you doing? These offers are incredible. He tapped his ear once, signaling her to stay quiet. Then he spoke to the assembled representatives without turning around. I want information first. Tell me about the Hive Empress, everything. Yuri hesitated. That is classified military intelligence. I can't fight an enemy I don't understand. Tell me or I leave now. The Chancellor exchanged glances with the others. Finally, he gestured agreement. Very well. What do you know already? Only rumors. That she appeared 5 years ago. That she commands a species we've never encountered before. That she's consumed 40 worlds. Consumed is accurate, Yuri said darkly. Her hive doesn't occupy worlds. It absorbs them. Every being, every resource, everything gets integrated into her collective. The worlds she leaves behind are empty husks. Why? Doyen asked. Why what? Why does she consume them? What does she want? Yuri's scales paled. We don't know. She refuses all communication. Her forces attack without warning. We've captured some of her drones, but they die before we can interrogate them. She's a monster, Commander. Pure and simple. Doyen finally turned around. Nothing is pure and simple. Every action has a reason. Then you'll accept command? Hope filled Yuri's voice. You'll lead our forces against her? I didn't say that. Doyen looked at each representative in turn. You've offered me beauty, wealth, power, all things I don't want. But you're holding something back. Something you think I can't handle knowing. The chamber grew colder. The representatives shifted uncomfortably. I don't know what you mean, Yuri said carefully. Yes, you do. Doyen pointed at the prison sector visible through the window. You have someone there. Someone connected to the hive, and you haven't mentioned it once. Silence. Then Hana stepped forward, her face pale. Doyen, don't. Don't what? He faced her. Don't ask questions? Don't try to understand the enemy? That's not how I work, Ambassador. You know that. Yuri's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. We do have prisoners from the hive. Low-level drones. Nothing more. You're lying. Doyen said it without anger, just stating a fact. You have something bigger. Someone important. Otherwise, you wouldn't be this nervous. The Chancellor's scales had gone completely white. Commander, there are things you cannot know, cannot ask for. Lines that must not be crossed. Then cross them, Doyen said. Because I'm not fighting blind. Show me what you're hiding or I walk away right now. The representatives erupted in argument. Some demanded he be removed. Others insisted they had to tell him. Yuri tried to restore order, but the chamber descended into chaos. Through it all, Doyen stood calm. He had learned long ago that the most important information was always the thing people refused to discuss. The Confederation was terrified of the Hive Empress, but they were also terrified of something in their prison. Something they had captured but couldn't control. He needed to know what that was, because in his experience, the things people feared most were often the keys to victory. Finally, Yuri raised both hands. The chamber quieted. Very well, Commander. You want the truth? We'll show you the truth. But remember, you demanded this, and what you see cannot be unseen. I've seen plenty of things I can't unsee, Doyen said. One more won't matter. Yuri looked at him with something between respect and pity. I hope you're right, Commander. Because what we're about to show you will change everything. The war room sat deep in the station's core, behind security doors that required genetic verification from 3 different species to open. Doyen followed Yuri and Hana through corridors that grew darker and colder with each step. The other representatives had been dismissed. What came next was for only the highest clearance. They reached a chamber lined with screens showing star maps and tactical displays. In the center stood a holographic projector showing real-time feeds from multiple sources. Yuri gestured to the screens. Before we show you the prisoner, you need to understand the scope of what we face. The displays lit up with images of dead worlds, planets stripped of all life, their surfaces gray and barren. Cities that had held millions now stood empty. Ships drifted without crews, space stations dark and silent. 40 worlds, Yuri said quietly, gone in 5 years. The hive moves like a plague. When it arrives, all communication stops within days. When we send investigation teams weeks later, we find nothing alive, not even bacteria. Doyen studied the images. He had seen death before, but this was different. This was total, complete, like the worlds had been erased. How fast can the hive travel? Fast, faster than we can track. Their ships use technology we don't understand. They appear, they attack, they consume, they vanish. Yuri brought up a tactical map showing the outer rim. Red markers indicated hive attacks. We've lost 40 worlds in 5 years. At this rate, they'll reach the core systems within a decade. Have you tried negotiating? Of course. We've sent diplomats, envoys, peace offerings. The hive destroys them all without response. We've tried every frequency, every language, every method of communication we know. Silence. Hana spoke up. The Confederation has never faced an enemy that refuses to talk. Even during the Void Wars, there were channels of communication. But the hive is different. It's like trying to negotiate with a force of nature. Doyen turned to face them. So how did you capture a prisoner? Yuri's scales darkened. 3 months ago, we got lucky. A hive ship was damaged in battle and couldn't retreat fast enough. We boarded it before it self-destructed. Inside, we found her. Her? The prisoner. Come, you demanded to see, so we'll show you. They walked to a blast door that looked strong enough to survive a nuclear explosion. Yuri placed his hand on the scanner. The door took a full minute to open, layers of security disengaging one by one. Beyond was a viewing chamber with a window of reinforced transparent metal. On the other side was a cell, and in that cell stood something Doyen had never seen before. She was tall, almost 7 feet. Her body looked partially insectoid, with a smooth exoskeleton that shifted colors between deep purple and black. But she also had humanoid features, a face that was alien yet somehow beautiful. Her eyes were large and multifaceted, catching light like gemstones. Forearms extended from her torso, each ending in delicate fingers. Wings folded against her back shimmered with patterns that seemed to move. She stood perfectly still, staring directly at them through the window. Who is she? Doyen asked. We call her Specimen 7, Yuri said. But the hive drones we've interrogated before dying all repeat the same word when we show them her image. Ariel. We believe she's not just any prisoner. We believe she might be the Empress herself. Doyen stepped closer to the window. The being inside tilted her head, tracking his movement, her eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. You captured the Hive Empress and didn't tell the galaxy? We're not certain, Hana said. She could be a high-ranking officer, a royal guard, a decoy. We don't know the Hive's hierarchy. But her biology is more complex than any drone we've captured, and the way the other drones reacted to her image suggests extreme importance. Have you interrogated her? Tried. She doesn't speak. Doesn't respond to any stimulus. Just stands there watching. Yuri pointed to monitoring equipment along the walls. Our sensors show she's alive and aware. Her brain activity is off the charts. But she won't communicate. Doyun studied the prisoner. She studied him back. Something in her eyes seemed almost curious. How did you capture her? It wasn't easy. She killed 30 soldiers before we subdued her. Even unarmed, she's incredibly dangerous. Those wings can cut through armor. Her strength is 10 times a human's. We keep her in stasis fields between observations. So you have the enemy commander in custody, and instead of using that as leverage, you're asking me to fight a war. Yuri's scales flushed darker. We've tried using her as leverage. We've broadcasted her capture across all frequencies. The Hive hasn't responded. Either they don't care, or they know we won't kill her because she's too valuable as a source of intelligence. Doyen walked along the window, and the prisoner's eyes followed him. There was intelligence there. Deep, vast intelligence. He had interrogated enough prisoners during the Void Wars to recognize when someone was thinking, calculating, planning. What if you're asking the wrong questions? He said, meaning. You've been trying to fight them, capture them, stop them. But has anyone tried to understand them? To figure out why they're doing this? Hana stepped beside him. Doyen, they're consuming worlds. Does the why matter? It always matters. Every war I've fought started because someone didn't understand what the other side wanted. The Void Wars could have been prevented if we'd listened earlier. He turned to face Yuri. I want access to all your data on the Hive. Every battle report, every intercepted transmission, every analyzed piece of technology. Everything. That's thousands of classified files. Then I'll need time to read them. How long until the Hive attacks the next world? Yuri consulted a datapad. Intelligence suggests 2 weeks. Maybe 3. Give me 1 week. Let me study what you have. Then I'll give you my decision. The Chancellor looked relieved. You'll consider accepting command? I'll consider it. But I want full access. No restrictions. And I want to question her. He pointed at the prisoner. The room went silent. Yuri's scales went white again. Absolutely not. She's far too dangerous. Then how do you expect to learn anything? You said she won't respond to your scientists. Maybe she'll respond to someone different. And maybe she'll kill you the moment we drop the stasis field. Doyen shrugged. I've survived worse odds. Hana grabbed his arm. Dion, this is insane. We don't know what she's capable of. What if she has mental powers? What if she can control minds? Then we would know already. She's been in custody for 3 months. If she could escape, she would have. He looked back at the prisoner. She was still watching him, her multifaceted eyes reflecting his image hundreds of times. I think she's waiting. Waiting for what? For someone to ask the right question. Yuri shook his head violently. I cannot authorize this. The council would never approve. If something happened to you, we'd lose any chance of stopping the Hive. Then you have a choice, Doyen said calmly. Let me do this my way or find another commander. Because I won't fight an enemy I don't understand. And I can't understand them without talking to her. The standoff lasted almost a minute. Yuri looked at Hana, who gave a small, helpless shrug. Finally, the Chancellor's scales settled into a resigned gray color. 1 week. You can have your access to the files. But the prisoner remains off limits until the Council votes on your request. I'll need to convince 17 governments to let you near the galaxy's most dangerous prisoner. You have 3 days to get that approval, Doyen said. I'll spend them reading everything you have on the Hive. When I'm done, either you let me question her or I leave this station. He turned and walked toward the door. Hana hurried after him, leaving Yuri standing alone in the viewing chamber. You're going to get yourself killed, she said once they were in the corridor. Maybe. But I'm going to understand them first. That's worth the risk. Why? Why is understanding them so important? Doyen stopped walking and faced her. Because during the Void Wars, everyone thought the enemy was pure evil. Monsters who wanted to destroy us for no reason. But when I finally captured their commander and talked to him, you know what I learned? They were terrified. They thought we were coming to destroy them. 5 years of war because both sides were too scared to ask questions. And you think the hive is the same? I think something is making them desperate. Desperate enough to attack 40 worlds, and desperate people do terrible things. But if I can figure out what they're desperate for, maybe I can stop this without more bloodshed. Or she kills you in the first 30 seconds. Then you'll need to find a different commander. He started walking again. Come on. I have thousands of files to read and 1 week to read them. Let's get started. Behind them, through the blast door and reinforced window, Queen Ariel watched the human walk away. For the first time in 3 months of captivity, something like interest stirred in her vast consciousness. The other humans had looked at her with fear, hatred, disgust. This one looked at her with curiosity. Perhaps, she thought, he might actually ask the right questions. And if he did, perhaps she might actually answer. The game was changing, and for the first time since her capture, Ariel felt something almost like hope. Doyen spent 6 days reading. He locked himself in his quarters with a datapad and worked through thousands of reports, battle analyses, and scientific studies. Hana brought him food that he barely touched. Jiwan checked in every few hours with updates from the ship. The data painted a disturbing picture. The hive wasn't random in its attacks. Doyen mapped every world they had consumed and found a pattern. They moved in a specific direction, following a path through space that curved toward a particular sector of the galaxy. Not toward the Confederation's core worlds, as everyone assumed, but toward something else. He pulled up star charts and overlaid the hive's attack pattern. The line pointed toward the eternal void, a region of space where stars were dying at an accelerated rate. Astrophysicists had noticed the phenomenon decades ago but couldn't explain it. Stars that should have burned for millions of years were collapsing into white dwarfs or exploding as supernovas centuries too early. The hive was fleeing from the eternal void, not conquering toward something, but running away from something worse. On the 7th day, Yuri visited his quarters. The council has voted, the chancellor said. His scales were pale gray, the color of resignation. You may question the prisoner. Under heavy guard. Any sign of danger and we terminate the session immediately. Doyen stood from his desk, finally allowing himself to feel the exhaustion of 6 sleepless days. When? Now. We've arranged a neutral location. A small moon between our territory and the hive's last known position. The prisoner has agreed to be transported. She agreed? For the first time in 3 months, she responded to us. When we told her a human commander wanted to meet, she nodded. Yuri's expression was unreadable. I don't know what that means, but it worries me. It means she's been waiting for someone who thinks differently. Where's this moon? 3 hours away. We've cleared the approach vector. No weapons except what the guards carry. You'll be completely exposed, Commander. If this is a trap, then I'll deal with it. Doyen grabbed his jacket. Let's go. The journey to the neutral moon was tense. Doyen rode in a small diplomatic vessel with Yuri, Hana, and a squad of heavily armed guards. Through the window he could see the prisoners' transport, a secure ship built like a flying prison cell. Jiwan's voice crackled over his comm. Commander, the Soul's Pride is holding position at the moon's orbital distance. If anything goes wrong, I can have weapons on that surface in 90 seconds. Acknowledged, Doyen said. But hold fire unless I specifically order it. No matter what you see. Sir, with respect, if that thing attacks you, you hold fire. That's an order, Lieutenant Elintz. Then, yes, sir. The moon's surface was barren gray rock under a black sky. The Confederation had built a simple dome structure for the meeting. Just a clear room with air and gravity. No weapons. No technology beyond basic life support. Completely neutral ground. Doyen's ship landed first. He stepped out onto the gray rock, feeling the reduced gravity make each step bounce slightly. The dome waited 100 yards ahead, glowing softly in the darkness. The prisoner's ship landed on the opposite side of the dome. Its doors opened and guards emerged first, weapons ready. Then she stepped out. Even across the distance, Ariel was impressive. 7 feet of deadly grace, moving with a fluidity that seemed impossible for something partially made of exoskeleton. Her wings caught starlight and threw it back in patterns of purple and blue. She wore no restraints, no chains. She walked freely, as if the guards around her were an honor escort rather than captors. Doyen started toward the dome. So did Ariel. They reached the entrance at the same time. Commander, Yuri's voice crackled in his earpiece. Last chance to reconsider. Doyen tapped his ear, turning off the comm. He wanted no distractions. Ariel tilted her head, watching him. Up close, she was even more striking. Her exoskeleton had patterns like circuit boards, glowing faintly with some internal energy. Her forearms moved independently, each one expressive in ways a human's two could never be. Her face, despite its alien structure, held something almost human. Intelligence, awareness, sadness. They entered the dome together. The door sealed behind them. Through the transparent walls, Doyen could see guards on both sides, weapons aimed inward. Any wrong move and the dome would become a kill zone. He walked to the center of the room and sat on the floor, crossing his legs. Ariel watched this for a moment, then folded her long legs and sat opposite him. They were 10 feet apart, close enough to talk, far enough to react if things went wrong. For a full minute, neither spoke. They simply looked at each other, taking measure. Finally, Doyen broke the silence. "You understand me?" "Yes." Her voice was surprisingly beautiful, musical and layered, as if multiple voices spoke in harmony. "I speak 17 languages. Yours is simple. Then why haven't you spoken to your captors? They ask the wrong questions. They want to know how to kill my people. How to stop the hive, how to win their war." Her multifaceted eyes fixed on him. "You are different. You want to know why?" "I do. Why are you consuming worlds?" "Because our worlds are dying." She said it simply, without emotion. "The stars that warm our planets are failing, collapsing, exploding. We tried to find natural worlds to relocate to, but your Confederation had claimed them all. So we had to take them." Doyen leaned forward. "The eternal void. Your worlds are in that sector." "Yes, 8 of our 14 homeworlds have already been destroyed. The remaining 6 will fail within 50 years. We have nowhere else to go. But you're not just relocating. You're consuming everything, leaving the worlds empty." Ariel's wings rustled, a sound like silk sliding on silk. "You don't understand the hive. We are not individuals like you. We are one consciousness in many bodies. When we claim a world, we integrate everything into our collective. The people, the resources, the knowledge. It's not murder. It's transformation. The people you absorb don't get a choice. Does the food you eat get a choice? Does the air you breathe? We are survival, Commander. Nothing more. Nothing less." Doyen sat back. He had expected a monster. Instead, he found a leader making impossible choices to save her people. He knew that feeling too well. "During the Void Wars," he said quietly, "I had to abandon a colony world. 3 million people. We couldn't evacuate them in time, and if we stayed to help, the enemy would have destroyed our entire fleet. So I ordered the retreat. I left them to die so that billions of others could live." Ariel's eyes seemed to soften. "Then you understand. I understand the mathematics of survival. But there's a difference. I didn't lie to myself about what I did. I didn't call it transformation or integration. I abandoned people to death, and I live with that choice every day." He met her complex gaze. "You're doing the same thing. Killing billions to save your own. At least be honest about it." Silence. One of Ariel's hands reached up to touch her chest, over where a human heart would be. "You're right," she said softly. "I tell myself pretty words. That absorption into the hive is a gift, that individuals become part of something greater. But the truth is simpler. I'm killing them to save my people, and I will continue killing them until either all my people are safe or I am stopped. What if there was another way? There is no other way. We've searched for uninhabited worlds, found nothing suitable. We've tried to negotiate with the Confederation. They refuse to even meet with us. Your species sees us as monsters, and perhaps they're right. But monsters or not, we have the right to survive." Doyen stood up and walked to the dome's edge. Outside, he could see the guards tensing. He ignored them and looked up at the stars. "The Confederation has resources you can't imagine. Scientists who've solved problems across hundreds of worlds. What if they could help? What if they could stop the star collapse in the eternal void? Why would they help their enemy?" "Because you wouldn't be their enemy anymore." He turned back to face her. "You said you tried to negotiate. When? 5 years ago. Before we attacked our first world. And they refused? They said our science was impossible. That stars don't fail the way we described. They accused us of trying to trick them, to gain sympathy before an invasion. When we showed them our dying worlds, they said we had destroyed them ourselves." Doyen closed his eyes. The Confederation's arrogance had started this war. They assumed they knew everything, that their science was perfect. They never considered that they might be wrong. "I believe you," he said. Ariel stood, her full height making her tower over him. Why? Because I've read the reports. I've seen the pattern of your attacks. You're not expanding randomly. You're fleeing. And I've seen records of the eternal void phenomenon. The scientists are baffled. They don't understand why the stars are dying, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. So you believe me. One human believes me. That changes nothing. It changes everything. Doyen walked toward her. The guards outside started shouting, but he kept moving until he stood directly in front of the Hive Queen. She could kill him with one swipe of those deadly hands. Instead, she just watched him with those complex, beautiful eyes. I'm going to make you an offer, he said. Stop attacking for 6 months. In return, I'll convince the Confederation to dedicate their best scientists to solving your star collapse problem. If we can save your worlds, you won't need to consume others. And if you can't save them, then in 6 months you go back to war. But at least we tried peace first. Ariel studied him for a long moment. Doyen returned to the council station with Ariel walking beside him, not as a prisoner but as a diplomatic guest. Half the council demanded his immediate arrest. The other half wanted explanations. Chancellor Yuri looked like he had aged 10 years in 3 hours. You made a treaty with the enemy without authorization, Yuri said, his scales dark with fury. You violated every protocol, given aid to a war criminal. This is treason, Commander. They stood in the Grand Chamber again, but this time the atmosphere was hostile. Representatives shouted from their floating platforms. Some demanded war, others called for Doyen's execution. The few who urged calm were drowned out by the chaos. Ariel stood beside Doyen perfectly still. Her presence made everyone nervous. Guards surrounded them in a loose circle, weapons ready but held low. No one wanted to fire first and start a massacre, but everyone was prepared for one. Hana pushed through the crowd to reach them. Doyen, what were you thinking? You can't just declare peace on your own. I didn't declare peace. I negotiated a ceasefire. 6 months to find a solution that saves everyone. He raised his voice so the entire chamber could hear. Unless you'd prefer to keep fighting a war none of you understand. We understand perfectly, shouted a crystalline representative. The Hive is destroying worlds, killing billions. They're monsters. They're desperate, Doyen countered. Their homeworlds are dying. Stars in the eternal void are collapsing, and your scientists told them it was impossible, so they took the only action they could. They tried to survive. By murdering innocent people, another voice from the assembly. Yes. Doyen's simple agreement shocked the room into silence. They made a terrible choice, but it was a choice born from having no other options. We can give them options, or we can keep fighting until one side is extinct. Yuri descended from his platform until he stood at ground level with Doyen. Even if what you say is true, why should we help them? Why should we dedicate resources to saving the Hive's worlds when they've destroyed 40 of ours? Because it's the right thing to do. And because it's smarter than war. Doyen pulled out a datapad and projected its contents for everyone to see. Star maps filled the air, showing the pattern of Hive attacks. Look at the trajectory. They're not attacking your core worlds. They're fleeing from the eternal void. In 50 years, when their remaining 6 worlds are destroyed, the Hive won't stop at 40 conquered planets. They'll need hundreds. They'll consume everything in their path because they'll have nothing left to lose. The chamber fell quiet as representatives studied the projection. The mathematical reality was stark. The Hive's desperation would only grow worse. But if we solve the star collapse problem, Doyen continued, the Hive has no reason to attack. They can return to their own worlds. This war ends. And if we can't solve it? A floating jellyfish creature asked. If the problem is unsolvable, then we lose 6 months. But at least we tried something other than mutual destruction. 6 months during which the Hive could be preparing for a massive attack, Yuri said. You're asking us to trust our greatest enemy. Ariel spoke for the first time, her harmonious voice carrying across the chamber. You're correct not to trust me. I've given you no reason to, but Commander Kim has given me reason to trust him. For 3 months I sat in your prison, and no one asked why I fought. Only how to stop me. He asked why. That simple question changed everything. Pretty words from a mass murderer, someone shouted. Ariel's wings flared slightly, but her voice remained calm. I don't ask for forgiveness. I don't expect understanding, but I offer you facts. My Hive has the strength to destroy 50 more worlds before you stop us. We will do so unless you give us an alternative. Commander Kim offers that alternative. Reject it, and this war continues until one of us is extinct. Accept it, and perhaps both our peoples survive. Yuri's scales shifted through several colors as he processed this. Finally, he looked at Doyen. You truly believe this can work? I believe it's worth trying. And I believe I can do it. Give me command of a scientific task force. 6 months to study the eternal void and find a solution. If I fail, you're no worse off than you are now. But if I succeed, you save billions of lives on both sides. The Chancellor turned to address the Assembly. The Council will vote. All in favor of accepting Commander Kim's treaty and dedicating resources to studying the eternal void phenomenon. The voting took an hour. It was close, much closer than Doyen had hoped. But in the end, the pragmatists won. The Confederation agreed to the ceasefire and authorized Doyen to lead the scientific effort. As the representatives dispersed, still arguing among themselves, Hana approached him. You just bet the galaxy on being able to solve a problem that's baffled scientists for decades, she said. I know. And you have 6 months. I know. Doyen, what if you can't do it? What if the stars can't be saved? He looked at Ariel, who was speaking quietly with Yuri, negotiating the details of the ceasefire. Then I'll have to find another solution. I always do. Over the next week, Doyen assembled his team. He requested Dr. Yunji Lee, humanity's leading astrophysicist. She arrived from Earth looking both excited and terrified. You want me to work with the Hive? She asked. I want you to work with their scientists. They've been studying the star collapse for decades. They have data we don't. Their scientists are probably like them, insectoid collective minds. So, does that make their physics wrong? Yunji opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. No, I suppose it doesn't. Where do we start? With understanding the problem. The eternal void stars are failing too fast. What could cause that? They set up a research station at the edge of the eternal void. The facility orbited a dying star, its light dim and reddish. Through the windows, Doyen could see other stars in various stages of collapse. White dwarfs, neutron stars, black holes where brilliant suns had once burned. Ariel brought 3 of her own scientists. They looked similar to her but smaller, with only 2 arms instead of 4. They moved in perfect synchronization, their collective consciousness making them function as one organism. Yunji was visibly uncomfortable working near them. They don't talk, she complained. They just share information telepathically. How am I supposed to collaborate? Through Ariel, Doyen said. She can translate between individual thought and collective consciousness. It's inefficient, so make it efficient. We don't have time for prejudice. The work was brutal. 14-hour days analyzing stellar data, running simulations, testing theories. Yunji and the Hive scientists struggled to communicate at first. Their approaches to physics so fundamentally different that even basic concepts required translation. But slowly, grudgingly, they found common ground. Physics was physics, regardless of who studied it. The math didn't care about species. 2 months in, they had their first breakthrough. Yunji ran into Doyen's office, breathless. It's exotic matter. Dark energy concentrations. They're somehow accumulating in the eternal void and feeding on stellar cores. That's why the stars are failing. Can we stop it? I don't know yet. But at least we understand what we're fighting. Ariel joined them, her scientists flowing around her like extensions of her body. We concur with Dr. Lee's findings. The exotic matter is drawn to dense gravity wells. It's consuming our stars from within. How do we remove it? Doyen asked. We can't, not with current technology. The amounts are too vast. Yunji pulled up a simulation showing the scale of the problem. It would take the energy output of 1,000 suns just to clear one star system. Doyen studied the display. 1,000 suns, impossible with current technology, but maybe not impossible with future technology. What if we don't remove it? What if we redirect it? Both Yunji and Ariel turned to stare at him. Redirect exotic matter? Yunji said. It's not like a river. You can't just dig a new channel. Why not? If it's drawn to gravity wells, create stronger gravity wells elsewhere. Lure it away from the stars. Ariel's wings rustled with excitement. Black holes. We could position artificial gravity generators near existing black holes. Draw the exotic matter away from the stars and into regions where it can't do harm. That would require generators more powerful than anything we've built, Yunji said, but her eyes were bright with possibility. We'd need resources from dozens of worlds. Cooperation across the entire Confederation. Then we get it. Doyen looked at both of them. This works, right? Theoretically? Theoretically, Yunji admitted. But the engineering challenges are enormous, and we'd need to act fast. Once we start drawing the exotic matter away, the process has to be completed quickly, or we risk destabilizing the entire region. How fast? Months, maybe weeks. Doyen pulled up his comm. I need to speak to Chancellor Yuri immediately. The next month was a whirlwind of politics and logistics. Convincing the Confederation to commit massive resources to saving the Hive's worlds was nearly impossible. But Doyen had one advantage. Everyone had seen the joint research station work. They had seen human and Hive scientists collaborating. The impossible had become possible. Jiwan coordinated the military aspects, ensuring that ships and resources moved where they needed to be. Hana worked the diplomatic channels, calling the diplomatic vessel Unity was designed for long voyages between distant systems. Doyen and Ariel spent 3 weeks aboard it, traveling between the Confederation's core worlds to gather final approvals and resources for the massive stellar restoration project. The ship was luxurious, but they spent most of their time in the observation deck. The transparent dome showed the universe in all directions, stars streaming past as they traveled through hyperspace. It was the only place on the ship where they could truly be alone. Your people fear me, Ariel said one evening. They sat across from each other as they had on the neutral moon months ago. But now there was no tension, only tired acceptance. Can you blame them? You consumed 40 of their worlds. No, I don't blame them. But I'm weary of the fear. Even my own people fear me sometimes. Being queen means being isolated. Always above, never equal. Doyen understood that too well. After the Void Wars ended, Earth held a parade for me. Millions of people lining the streets cheering my name. I felt more alone in that crowd than I ever did in combat. They didn't see me. They saw what they wanted me to be. A hero, a symbol, something perfect and untouchable. But I'm not perfect. I've made terrible mistakes, cost lives through poor decisions, but no one wants to hear about the hero's failures. Ariel shifted her position, folding her long legs differently. The Hive thinks I'm infallible. My consciousness links to millions of individuals. They believe that with so many minds connected, I can't make wrong choices. But they're wrong. I still doubt. Still fear. The collective doesn't erase individuality. It amplifies loneliness. How does that work exactly? The collective consciousness? Imagine feeling everyone's emotions simultaneously. Their joy, their pain, their fear. Now multiply that by millions. Every decision I make affects all of them immediately. When I absorbed those 40 worlds, every Hive member felt the death of every individual consumed. We don't take life lightly, Commander. We feel it all. Doyen leaned forward. Then why continue? If you feel their deaths, why keep doing it? Because I feel my own people's deaths more strongly. The Hive worlds destroyed by failing stars. The billions of my people who died screaming as their planets collapsed. That pain drove me to do anything. Sacrifice anything to save the rest. Her voice broke slightly. You can't understand what it's like to feel an entire world die, to have millions of voices in your head suddenly go silent. No. But I can understand choosing between terrible options. During the Void Wars, I had to decide which colony worlds to defend and which to abandon. The enemy was advancing on 3 fronts. I could save 2 fronts if I abandoned the third. 3 million people on one side, 7 million on the other 2 combined. The mathematics were simple. The choice destroyed me. What did you do? I saved the 7 million, abandoned the 3 million. They begged for help, and I ignored them because I had to. Because more lives mattered than fewer lives. Cold calculation. He looked down at his hands. I can still hear their last transmissions sometimes. Asking why we left them. Why they weren't worth saving. Ariel reached across the space between them and gently touched his hand with one of her forearms. Her exoskeleton was warm, almost soft. You made the choice I would have made. The choice any leader would make. But that doesn't make it hurt less. No, it doesn't. They sat like that for a while, connected by that simple touch. 2 beings from completely different worlds, finding unexpected kinship and shared trauma. Tell me about your people, Doyen said eventually. Not the Hive, you. What were you before you became queen? Ariel's multifaceted eyes seemed to soften. Young. Naive. I thought leadership meant power, authority, the ability to command and be obeyed. I was so wrong. When did you realize the truth? When the first world died? I felt every single one of my people on that planet vanish from the collective. Millions of voices silenced in seconds. That's when I understood. Leadership isn't power. It's responsibility. The weight of every life depending on your choices. And you've carried that weight for how long? 15 years. Since I became queen at 20 solar cycles. Your years are longer than ours, but I'm approximately 40 in human terms. Doyen blinked. 40? You've been queen since you were 25? My predecessor died when our first world collapsed. The hive needed a new queen immediately. I was the strongest candidate. The most intelligent. The most capable of bearing the collective consciousness. So they chose me, and I've been queen ever since. 15 years of this. Of feeling everyone's pain. Making impossible choices. My God, Ariel, how are you still functional? I ask myself that question every day. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Some mornings I wake up and don't want to continue. The weight is too much. The memory's too painful. But I can't quit. Millions depend on me. If I fall, the entire hive falls with me. Doyen understood. He had felt the same weight, the same inability to step away from responsibility. During the war, I tried to resign twice. Both times they refused. Said I was too valuable, too necessary. I felt like a prisoner of my own competence. Exactly. We're trapped by being good at what we do, and what we do destroys us slowly. Ariel's wings folded tight against her back. A gesture Doyen had learned meant distress. Sometimes I wonder what I would have been if I hadn't become queen. A scientist, perhaps. Or an artist. The hive has artists, you know. We're not all warriors and drones. What would you create? If you were an artist? Beauty. Things that bring joy instead of death. I would make sculpture from light and sound. Symphonies that you could see and touch. I've always loved music. You can still do that. After we fix the stars, after your people are safe, you could create. Queens don't retire, Commander. I will be queen until I die. The collective consciousness can't be transferred. When I die, a new queen will rise and she will inherit this burden. The sadness in her voice cut deep. Doyen thought about his own life, how he had managed to retire even though they didn't want him to. Ariel would never have that option. I'm sorry, he said. That's an impossible weight to carry alone. But I'm not alone anymore, am I? You understand, perhaps not perfectly, perhaps not completely. But you understand enough. She looked at him with those complex eyes. That's why I agreed to meet you. Why I trusted you when I trusted no one else. You looked at me and saw another person making terrible choices. Not a monster to be destroyed. You're not a monster, Ariel. You're someone trying to save her people with limited options. That doesn't excuse what you've done, but it explains it. And understanding is the first step toward forgiveness. I don't deserve forgiveness, none of us do. But maybe we can earn redemption. They talked through the night, sharing stories of their lives before leadership consumed them. Ariel described her childhood in the hive, learning to connect with the collective consciousness, discovering her abilities. Doyen told her about growing up on Earth, joining the military young, rising through ranks because he had a gift for tactical thinking. Lieutenant Jiwan monitored them from the ship's bridge. She watched the two leaders sitting together, talking like old friends. It disturbed her. The woman had consumed 40 worlds, killed billions. Yet her commander treated her with respect, even warmth. I don't understand, she said to Hana, who was also watching. How can he be so comfortable with her? Hana stared at the monitor thoughtfully. Because they're the same. Both of them are leaders crushed by impossible responsibility. Both have made choices that haunt them. Doyen sees himself in her. That should terrify us. Maybe, or maybe it's exactly what we need. Two people who understand the cost of war working together to prevent more of it. Jiwan wasn't convinced, but she said nothing. She just hoped her commander knew what he was doing. Back in the observation deck, dawn was breaking over a nearby planet as they exited hyperspace. Golden light streamed through the dome, painting everything in warm tones. This is what we're fighting for, Doyen said, watching the sunrise. Beauty, life, the simple joy of watching a sunrise. Will we succeed, do you think? Will we save my worlds? We have to. Because the alternative is unthinkable. Ariel stood, stretching her full height. If we do succeed, if the eternal void is restored and my people are safe, what will you do? Go home, retire again. Try to forget the things I've done. Will you forget me? The question hung in the air. Doyen stood and faced her. No, I don't think I could forget you even if I wanted to. You've changed how I see the galaxy, how I see leadership, how I see myself. You've changed me too. Before I met you, I thought I was alone in the universe, the only one who understood the burden of leadership. But you proved me wrong, and that's a gift I didn't expect. They stood close now, human and hive, so different yet so similar. Outside, the sun continued its rise, promising a new day. Thank you, Ariel said softly, for seeing me when others only saw a monster. Thank you for trusting me when you had every reason not to. The moment stretched. Then Unity's captain announced their arrival at the next system. The real world intruded on their private conversation. But something had changed between them. A connection formed not from physical attraction or political necessity, but from genuine understanding. Two souls who had walked through darkness alone, discovering they didn't have to be alone anymore. 6 months had passed since the ceasefire began. Dr. Yunji's team had worked miracles. The gravity generators were built, tested, and ready for deployment. The exotic matter in the eternal void could finally be redirected away from the dying stars. But not everyone was happy about it. Doyen stood in the Council Station's command center, watching status reports flow across dozens of screens. Everything was ready. Tomorrow, they would activate the generators and begin the restoration process. If successful, the Hive's worlds would be saved. The war would truly end. Chancellor Yuri approached, his scales darker than usual. We have a problem. What kind of problem? The extremist kind. We've intercepted communications from both Confederation and Hive factions. They're planning simultaneous attacks. They want to sabotage the generators and restart the war. Doyen's jaw tightened. How many? Enough to matter. 3 Confederation cruisers have gone rogue, led by Admiral Tanis. He believes the Hive can't be trusted, that we're making a fatal mistake. On the Hive side, a warrior sect has rejected Queen Ariel's authority. They want to continue the conquest. Can we stop them? Not all of them. Our forces are spread thin, protecting the generators. We estimate at least 1 attack will succeed. Where's Ariel? In the diplomatic wing, coordinating her people's part of the defense. Commander, if the generators are destroyed, 6 months of work is lost, and the extremists will claim victory. They'll say cooperation is impossible. Doyen pulled up a tactical display. The rogue forces were converging from multiple directions. Yuri was right. They couldn't stop everyone. I need to speak to Ariel. Now. He found her in a conference room surrounded by holographic displays showing Hive fleet movements. Her scientists worked around her in their synchronized way, processing information faster than any individual could. I know, she said before he could speak. My warriors have informed me. The betrayers will strike within hours. We need to combine our forces, pool resources, cover each other's weaknesses. Agreed. I'm deploying Hive ships to protect Confederation generators. Your forces should do the same for ours. It was a radical suggestion, Hive and Confederation forces working together directly, but it was also their only chance. I'll coordinate with Jiwon and Minho. We can create a unified defense network. They worked through the night, building an unprecedented military alliance. Human ships positioned near Hive installations, Hive vessels guarding Confederation facilities. A command structure that ignored species and focused only on protecting the mission. Jiwon was skeptical when Doyen gave her orders. Sir, you're asking me to trust Hive warships. These are the same forces that destroyed 40 worlds. And they're asking their people to trust us. The species that imprisoned their queen and called them monsters. Trust has to start somewhere, Lieutenant. Make it start with you. Yes, sir. She didn't sound happy, but she followed orders. The attacks came at dawn. 3 simultaneous strikes on critical generator installations. Admiral Tanis led the Confederation forces himself, broadcasting manifestos about betrayal and survival. The Hive warrior sect attacked with equal ferocity, claiming Ariel had grown weak. The station shook as nearby explosions ripped through space. Alarms screamed. Status boards lit up with red warnings. Doyen ran to the command center, Ariel beside him. They reached it together, bursting through doors into chaos. Officers shouted reports. Screens showed ships engaging in combat. The carefully planned defense was holding, but barely. Generator 7 is under heavy attack, someone shouted. Shields at 40%. Reroute Hive support ships from Sector 9, Ariel commanded. They're closest. Generator 12's defenses are failing, another voice called out. Confederation forces need assistance. Send my personal guard, Ariel said immediately. They're fast enough to reach it. Doyen coordinated the broader defense, moving pieces around like a chess game. Whenever Confederation forces faltered, Hive ships covered them. When Hive positions weakened, human vessels reinforced them. It was beautiful and terrifying, watching two former enemies fight as one. But the extremists were good. Admiral Tanis had spent decades in military service. He knew how to exploit weaknesses. The Hive warriors were equally skilled, using tactics refined across 40 conquered worlds. Generator 7 fell first, its shields collapsing under sustained fire. The station exploded in a bloom of light and debris. "We've lost 7, Jiwan reported, her voice tight. 16 crew dead. Generator destroyed." Doyen slammed his fist on the console. 1 down. They had deployed 20 generators. Losing even one would reduce the effectiveness of the entire network. "Admiral Tanis is targeting Generator 3 next," Ariel said, her consciousness processing data faster than the sensors could display it. "He's calculated that 3 is the next weakest position. Can we stop him?" "Not in time, but we can make him pay for it." Her eyes flashed with something dangerous. "My forces can cut off his retreat, trap him between Generator 3 and our battle group." "Do it." The Hive ships moved with coordinated precision, forming a net around Admiral Tanis's task force. The Admiral realized too late what was happening. He destroyed Generator 3, but his ships were now surrounded. "This is Commander Doyen Kim to Admiral Tanis," Doyen broadcast on open channels. "Stand down. You've made your point." Tanis's face appeared on screen, twisted with fury. "Made my point? You're betraying everything the Confederation stands for, helping our enemies. When the Hive turns on us, remember I tried to stop it. The only enemies here are people like you who refuse to see another way." Doyen's voice was cold. "Last chance. Stand down." "Never." "Then you leave me no choice." He nodded to Ariel. "Take them." The Hive ships closed in. It was over in minutes. Tanis's forces surrendered rather than face certain destruction. The Admiral was taken into custody, still screaming about betrayal, but the victories were hollow. They had lost 2 generators and the attacks were still ongoing. The command center was chaos, everyone shouting, trying to coordinate a defense that was crumbling. Then the alarm screamed louder. A new threat appeared on screens. "The station itself is under attack," Yuri announced, his voice shaking. "Extremist forces have breached the lower levels. They're fighting toward the main reactor. If they reach it, the entire station will be destroyed." Doyen and Ariel looked at each other. The station held 50,000 people from dozens of species. Diplomats, scientists, families, all would die if the reactor was compromised. "How long until they reach it?" Doyen asked. 10 minutes. Maybe less. Our security forces are engaged, but they're outnumbered. "I'm going down there," Doyen said. "Commander, that's suicide," Jiwan protested. "You're not a soldier anymore. You're a leader. You're needed here. I'm needed wherever I can make a difference. Coordinate the defense from here. I'll handle the station." Before anyone could argue further, Ariel stood. "I'm coming with you." "Ariel, no. You're the Hive Queen. If you die, your entire species loses its consciousness link, which is precisely why I must come. My warriors are among the attackers. They'll listen to me when they won't listen to anyone else besides." Her complex eyes fixed on him. "You can't ask your people to trust mine if I'm not willing to fight beside you." There was no time to argue. They ran. The lower levels of the station were a war zone. Bodies lay in corridors, both attackers and defenders. Smoke filled the air. Energy weapons had burned holes through walls. Doyen grabbed a rifle from a fallen guard. Ariel needed no weapon. Her 4 arms and deadly wings were enough. They fought through corridors together, a strange partnership. Human tactical thinking, combined with Hive physical superiority. Doyen called out positions and strategies. Ariel executed them with terrifying efficiency. The extremists were surprised to see them, more surprised when Queen Ariel herself demanded they stand down. "You've betrayed the Hive," one of the warrior drones hissed at her. "I've saved it," Ariel replied. "These people are giving us back our worlds, our future, and you would destroy that for pride? We are warriors. We conquer. It's what we are. You are what I make you, and I make you builders now, not destroyers. Stand down, or I will remove you from the collective consciousness permanently." The threat was real. Ariel could sever their connection to the Hive, leaving them isolated individuals. For drones who had never existed outside the collective, it was a fate worse than death. Most surrendered. A few refused and had to be subdued. But the path to the reactor was clear. They reached it with seconds to spare. A bomb had been planted at the reactor's core. Sophisticated, designed to cause a chain reaction that would destroy the station. "Can you disarm it?" Ariel asked. Doyen studied the device. "No, it's too complex. I'd need 10 minutes I don't have. Then we evacuate. 50,000 people. We can't move them fast enough." They stared at each other, both understanding the terrible math. The station couldn't be evacuated. The bomb couldn't be disarmed. In 3 minutes, everyone would die, unless someone stayed to contain the explosion. "No," Ariel said, reading his intention. "Don't even think it. It's the only way. Someone has to stay here, use their body to absorb the blast. Channel it away from the reactor core. It won't stop the explosion, but it might prevent the chain reaction. Then I'll do it. My exoskeleton is stronger. I'll survive longer. You're the Hive Queen. Millions need you.